When you end it, then something that often happens is a period we call post-separation abuse.
Oh,
and
gosh,
post-separation
yeah.
abuse can be everything from stalking to incessant text and email messages. I mean, obviously the most horrific cases, it's physical violence afterwards. People kind of know that's going to happen and they don't want that to happen. And so they say, well, there's one way to avoid this from happening, is to stay in it.
I have a lot of compassion for people that have experienced this, because I just remember thinking, like, I would think, how do I get out of this relationship? But it's almost, but I didn't have the courage. Now, I had the courage to do everything else in my life and achieve and go after my goals and have challenging conversations and succeed or whatever it might be, but I lacked the courage to have tough conversations in a previous relationship that kept me in it. And when I would think about ending the relationship, I would have heart palpitations.
So what were you afraid of?
Oh man, let me go back to this state now, because I feel like I'm in a healthy place now. But,
Sorry.
But I think I felt like I was a failure if I couldn't make the relationship work. I think I was thinking something's wrong with me if they're not accepting of me or loving me, or if they're mad or angry with me, or if I was thinking, how come we can't just go back to the first few months when it was just like, everything was amazing. There was never any stress. There was never any like make wrong or blame, or you need to change, or you can't do that, or you have to do this. None of that. I was like, why can't we just go back to that experience again and have that more continuously? So, but I just also didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like ever. So I never experienced that from the model of my parents.
That's right. That's right.
I never experienced that from all the relationships I had. So I was unable to know somatically, this is healthy, this is the way it's supposed to look. Whether we work out or not, based on our values or our vision or whatever, but this feels healthy.
Yeah.
I'd never felt healthy in any relationship.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't know.
No, you don't know. And in some ways, being honest with yourself about that moment in a relationship where you're like, this is not good for me. I'm afraid, like you said, I felt a lack of courage, as it were.
And I was also afraid, like, if I end this person's going to go out and try to like ruin my life.
Okay. Well, then, the thing is, so that's a real, so those fears, some of those fears are fears based on history. Some of those fears are fears based on identity. I'm a failure. Some of them fears based on potential reality.
Right.
Because if there's one thing because this is what's challenging about narcissistic relationships. It's actually great when they break up with you. And all my clients will say, what are you talking about? My heart's broken. I'm like, you're going to be so glad about this at some point.
That didn't happen though. I had to end it. Yeah.
You had to end it. So
when I kept saying, please end this, but they wouldn't.
They wouldn't do
okay. It. And then they were like, you're breaking everything up. It's your fault. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But when you end it, then something that often happens is a period we call post-separation abuse. And post-separation abuse can be everything from stalking to incessant text and email messages to talking badly to you about other people,
friends, reaching out to your friends,
putting on passive-aggressive posts on social media when everyone reads it, knows it's about you.
Yeah, of course.
And all of that stuff, large or small. I mean, some of the stuff can be, obviously the most horrific cases, it's physical violence afterwards. But in, what we're talking about is that not as dangerous, but still psychologically dangerous. People kind of know that's going to happen and they don't want that to happen.
No.
And so they say, well, there's one way to avoid this from happening, to stay in it, right?
Man.
But to see one of these relationships, so that partly that courage piece is to see a toxic relationship clearly, intimate relationship clearly, especially when we've had no template of healthy relationships or a history of relationships where we've made the accommodations in ourselves to make them work, is that to come into that place of courage, to see clearly that it's not okay and something needs to be done, can give people this tidal wave of terror of, that means all this other stuff in my life was a mess too. And
it's terrifying.
So it opens up this sort of door on our narratives that we sometimes don't want to look at and examine how these other things have shaped us.
Or examine our parents.
Our parents, exactly. That's my point, is that it feels like too much. But I have to say that, and the other fear that I hear a lot of people have is regret. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm reading this wrong? Those first 3 months were good, and maybe this is just a bump in the road. And if I walk away from this, and in fact, and I'm out there in the desolation of dating profiles and people's puppy pictures, what am I going to do? And now, and they
I'll
move
never
on.
find someone as good as
and
this.
the next
or-
person's going to get the better version of them. And so then people go down that rabbit hole, and it's almost like it's almost it's like a kid with a toy. They're like, I don't really want this toy, but I don't want you to have this toy. If you've ever had a sibling, the sibling doesn't give up the ball, but like, you don't want the ball, like, but I don't want her to have the ball.
Right.
It's that. So people, that fear of regret. What if I'm wrong? What if they change? What if they change for the next person? What if they move on quickly? They're going to move on quickly. That's what they do. They sort of, and all of that. And then I've got a bird in hand, and it's so hard to date, and all that stuff.
I've invested a year or 2 years or 4 years, 10, whatever it is, right? Gosh, how do you know when you know
That someone's narcissistic?
that someone's the right person?
The right person.
They say you know when you know, but how do you fully know mentally, spiritually, somatically, this is healthy, this is or could be the right person for me?
You're neither indifferent nor ruminating. Does that make sense? And the reason I'm making that distinction
What does that mean?
Okay, so you're ruminating when it's unhealthy. Like, you're ruminating the whole drive to work. Like, how could
You're
he
asking people, your friends, like, why is this happening?
Exactly.
And shit.
Right.
What do you think about this? And asking for advice.
All that. So that's bad.
Ruminating, yep.
Indifference is bad because I was going to say because you're not thinking about it all the time, but I don't mean not thinking about it all the time because you're literally indifferent to someone and you're like, if they never call me back, I don't care, right? I would say that in a good relationship, you are looking forward to seeing them. They're the first person you want to tell good news to because you feel validated, that they see something in you that you don't see, that they're genuinely proud of you, that they are, but it's more of the looking forward to them. Like even at the end of the day, I think I'm always amazed when I have a friend of mine, she's been married for about 30 years, 25, 30 years. And she was visiting me over the summer, and I was listening to her talk to her husband on the phone. And they're an old married couple. Sorry to friend if you're listening. You know I'm talking about you. But I was overhearing their conversation, and it was so beautiful. He was so solicitous. Like, he works very hard in the summer. She works very hard during the school year. And she wanted to go do all this stuff. And he's like, sweetie, you just need some time to yourself. Like, don't put so much on the day. Like, go out there, go with the kids, enjoy the beach. So it wasn't like, oh, you're having a vacation and I'm not. And he's like, I miss you so much, but I'm so glad you're having a good time and can't wait to see you. And she was, the tone of their voices. But I'm like, oh my God, after over 25 years, she is as looking forward to talking to him as she probably was when they were first dating. I have several friends in these situations, and you feel like you don't feel like you're looking at a friendship. You still feel like you're looking at something like special.
Sweet,
and I have to say that
yeah.
there's a fantasy of, like, imagine if you grew up with parents who had that kind of a marriage, what that does for you, what that does for your heart.
Thank you for watching this video. If you want more inspiring clips like this, make sure to click right here to subscribe and click right here to watch that next video that is specific to support you in your life.